It wasn't the silence that hurt the most. No, it was the feeling that came with it. Like a shadow you can't escape, no matter how fast you run. It started on a Tuesday, or maybe it was a Wednesday. I don't remember the day, but I remember the moment. My phone, which had once buzzed with messages, calls, and notifications, suddenly stopped. Cold turkey. No more, "Hey, how's your day going?" texts. No more reminders of upcoming plans. Just nothing. I don't think it was intentional at first. People get busy, right? Life happens. So I told myself, she'll call me when she has time. But as the hours stretched into days, the realization hit me like a bucket of ice water. I hadn't heard from her in almost 48 hours. I went through my phone, checked the messages, nothing new. Not even the little blue dot telling me she'd seen the text I sent hours ago. A knot formed in my stomach. I wasn't an idiot. I knew something had changed. But what? Was it me? Was it her? I didn't know. I only knew I had to figure it out. So, I did what any rational person would do. I kept waiting. But waiting, for some reason, only seemed to make it worse. I found myself checking my phone obsessively, watching the screen, waiting for the light to flash with a new notification. My heart raced every time it buzzed, but every time I picked it up, it was always something unrelated. A work email, a notification from the gym app, or a reminder to take my vitamins. The silence, though, that was the worst part. It felt like the phone had become some kind of torture device, constantly reminding me of what I didn't have. After the third day, I did something I had never done before. I drove to her apartment. Sure, we lived together, but it was a Thursday night, and I hadn't seen her since Monday morning. That was strange. Normally, she'd call to let me know she'd be out late or working late, but now there was just nothing. I parked outside, feeling the weight of my decision settle on my shoulders. This wasn't like me. I wasn't the kind of person who would just show up unannounced. I respected boundaries, but the silence was suffocating. When I rang the doorbell, the first thing that struck me was the emptiness of the place. No music playing, no lights on. The door creaked open just slightly, barely enough to make the smallest sound. I hesitated. "Hello," I called out. My voice felt foreign in the air, a harsh contrast to the stillness that had settled around me. There was a long pause, and then I heard it, a soft shuffle of footsteps from inside. A moment later, the door swung open fully. Tessa stood there, her hair messily pulled back into a ponytail, her eyes tired and distant. The kind of tired that can't be washed away with a good night's sleep. She didn't smile. She didn't even look surprised. She just stared at me for a moment, like she was trying to process something, but couldn't find the words. "What's going on?" I asked. My voice felt strangely calm, too calm for how I was actually feeling. Her lips parted, but for a moment, no words came out. She didn't seem angry or upset. She just looked resigned, and that scared me more than anything. I had seen this look before. The look of someone who's made up their mind about something, but doesn't want to say it aloud just yet. "Why haven't you been responding to me?" I pressed, my hands suddenly feeling cold. "I've been trying to reach you for days. Why are you ignoring me?" She opened her mouth again, but it wasn't to answer my question. It was as if she was searching for a response that she wasn't quite ready to give. And that was when I realized something that made my stomach churn. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. This wasn't something small. There was something else going on. Something much deeper. "I've been busy," she finally said, her words slow and deliberate. "I just needed some space, Felix. I've been thinking a lot about things." Thinking about what? My mind raced. Was she talking about us? About me? About our life together? Before I could say anything else, she stepped aside and motioned for me to come in. The apartment was strangely dark. Only the faintest glow from a streetlight outside illuminated the room. We sat down on the couch, and she told me that she needed time to figure things out. It sounded so rehearsed, so practiced. But I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that there was something more that she wasn't saying. Something hidden behind her calm exterior. "Figure things out?" I asked, confused. "What's there to figure out? We're fine, aren't we?" Her gaze dropped to her hands, fiddling with a bracelet on her wrist. "I don't know, Felix," she said quietly. "I don't know what's going on anymore. I just need to figure out who I am without all of this. Without you, without this life we built." My heart felt like it had been ripped out of my chest. I didn't know what to say. She wasn't looking at me like she used to, like she loved me, like we were partners. She was looking at me like I was a stranger. In that moment, something inside me broke. I had been living in this bubble, thinking everything was fine, but here she was, telling me that she didn't even know if she wanted to be with me anymore, that she needed time to figure out if she even wanted to be with us. I didn't leave that night. I stayed, and we talked, but not about anything important. We avoided the real issue, skirting around it like it was some invisible wall between us. She didn't want to admit it, but I could see it in her eyes. She was already gone, and I was just now realizing it. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because I was angry, not because I was hurt, but because I couldn't stop thinking about one thing. She hadn't even tried to fight for us. It was like I was already living in the past, trying to hold on to something that was slipping away, and I didn't even know how to stop it. The days that followed were strange. Tessa went back to her routine, but it felt like we were living on two different planets. Every day, she'd come home from work, and we'd sit down for dinner, like we used to. But there was no warmth between us anymore. No easy conversation. We ate in silence, the clinking of cutlery against the plates the only sound. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was always somewhere else in her mind, always thinking about something I couldn't see, couldn't touch. She would answer my questions with short, almost robotic responses. How was your day? Fine. Anything interesting happen? Not really. It was like she was on autopilot, and I was left behind, watching her go through the motions. I tried to get her to open up again. I suggested we go for a walk, like we used to on weekends. It'll be good for us, I said. We need to talk. She didn't say anything at first, but after a long pause, she agreed. We walked through the park in silence, each step feeling heavier than the last. The fall leaves were scattered on the ground, but they didn't look as vibrant as they used to. There was no joy in the air, no connection between us. I could feel the distance growing between us with every step. Finally, I broke the silence. Tessa, what's going on? I can't keep pretending everything's fine. We're not fine. She looked at me, her eyes searching for something, maybe even a way out. But instead of answering, she just sighed. I don't know, Felix, she said, her voice distant. I just feel like I need to figure things out on my own. I don't know who I am anymore. It was the same answer as before, but this time, it stung even more. It felt like she was trying to push me away, like I was no longer the person she wanted to share her life with. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to fix something that I couldn't even understand. The more I tried to reach her, the more she pulled away, like I was chasing something that was already out of my grasp. That night, I found myself staring at her side of the bed, the space between us growing wider and wider. I had tried everything to save this marriage, everything I could think of, but I couldn't fix what I didn't understand. I lay there, wide awake, listening to her soft breathing, and I realized something. She wasn't just pulling away from me. She was pulling away from everything. She didn't want to be here anymore, and I was the last person to realize it. I couldn't sleep. Every thought was a whirlwind, crashing through my mind. Was she seeing someone else? Was that why she was so distant? The idea gnawed at me, but I didn't want to face it. I didn't want to believe that the woman I loved, who I thought loved me in return, could be hiding something from me. But the silence between us spoke louder than any words ever could. The next few days felt like I was walking through a fog. Tessa and I barely spoke. The tension in the house was unbearable, and each time I tried to engage with her, she would respond with short answers, or sometimes, no answers at all. She was slipping further away, and I couldn't do anything to stop it. I started noticing small things that I hadn't paid attention to before, like how she was always on her phone, staring at the screen for minutes at a time. She'd lock it quickly whenever I entered the room, and when I asked her what she was looking at, she would just say, nothing, just catching up on work. But her eyes, they didn't look like someone who was just catching up on emails. There was something hidden in the way she glanced at the phone, a nervous energy that I couldn't ignore. One night, after dinner, she went into the other room to take a call. She wasn't gone long, but when she came back, she had that same look on her face, the one I'd seen 100 times, the one that told me she was hiding something. I decided to ask her about it. Who was that? I asked casually, trying to sound normal. She hesitated, her hand frozen on the doorknob. Just work, she said quickly, and walked past me, not meeting my eyes. But something in her voice didn't sound right. It wasn't just the words, it was the tone, the way she spoke so fast, like she was trying to cover something up. I knew I had to get to the bottom of this. The unease had been building inside me for days, and I couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine. That night, I did something I'd never done before. I waited until she went to bed, and then I quietly took her phone from the side table. I didn't plan to go through everything. I wasn't some kind of stalker, but I had to know what was going on. I unlocked the phone, and there it was, several messages from an unknown contact. They were brief, but the tone between them was unmistakable. Flirty, suggestive. I read through a few of the texts, feeling my chest tighten with every word. It was clear that there was something happening between Tessa and this person. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. Part of me wanted to scream, to demand answers right there and then. But another part of me, more rational, more controlled, told me to stay calm. I put the phone back and tried to sleep, but my mind raced. I knew I couldn't ignore this. I had to confront her. The next morning, I woke up to find Tessa already gone, as usual. She left early for work without saying goodbye. That's when I decided to take matters into my own hands. I knew where she worked, and I had a feeling I wasn't going to like what I found there. I spent the entire day trying to figure out how to approach this. I wasn't sure if I should confront her directly, or if I should keep watching, keep digging. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I couldn't just sit there and let this happen. Whatever this was, it had to stop. I drove to her office around lunch, trying to stay calm. I parked a block away and watched. She came out of the building with a man, someone I didn't recognize. They were laughing, too easily, too comfortably with each other. The way they looked at each other, the way they leaned in when they spoke, it was clear. My stomach dropped. I stayed in the car for a while, watching them. They walked to a nearby cafe and sat down at a table outside. My heart pounded in my chest. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Tessa, my wife, was with someone else. I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to storm over there, confront her in front of him, but I knew I couldn't. Not like that. Not without knowing the full story. So I waited. I watched them for what felt like hours, until they finally stood up and walked back to the office together. As they parted ways, I saw him lean in and kiss her on the cheek, something I had never done in public, not like that. And I knew, without a doubt, that something was going on between them. I didn't follow her back to the office. Instead, I went home, my mind swirling with questions. I didn't know how I was going to handle this, but I knew I couldn't keep pretending I didn't see what was happening right in front of me. That night, as I sat on the couch waiting for her to come home, I knew things were never going to be the same. The trust we once had was gone, and I wasn't sure if I could get it back, even if I tried. I couldn't sleep that night. My mind kept replaying what I had seen, Tessa and that man, laughing, leaning in, too comfortable with each other. It was like a punch to the gut every time I thought about it. But I couldn't let it consume me, at least not yet. I needed answers. The next day, I decided it was time to confront her. I didn't care if she was going to be angry or defensive. I couldn't keep pretending that nothing was wrong. The truth had to come out. I waited until late in the evening. She came home, looking exhausted, but I could tell something had changed in her. She wasn't herself. She avoided my gaze and walked straight past me without saying a word. That was my cue. Tessa, I called after her, my voice sharp. She froze, her back to me, and I could see her shoulders tense. She knew what was coming. Slowly, she turned around. What is it, Felix? Her tone was cool, almost like she didn't care. I took a deep breath. I need to know what's going on. I saw you with him yesterday. Who is he? My heart was racing, but I tried to keep my voice steady. I wasn't going to back down this time. Her eyes flickered with something. Guilt, maybe, or fear. But it was gone almost as quickly as it appeared. She crossed her arms, avoiding my gaze. I don't know what you're talking about. I wasn't buying it. Don't lie to me, Tessa. I saw you. Don't act like I'm stupid. There was a long silence, thick with tension. I could feel her pulling away from me, the distance between us widening with every second. Finally, she sighed, her shoulders slumping. His name is Alex, she said quietly. I've been seeing him for a few months now. The words hit me like a freight train. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I had suspected something, but hearing it come out of her mouth, hearing her admit it, was a different kind of pain. Why? I choked out, my voice barely above a whisper. Why would you do this to me, to us? She looked up at me, her expression blank. I don't know, Felix. I needed something different. I didn't know how to tell you. I was scared. Scared of what? I asked, anger and hurt mixing together. Scared of facing the truth? Scared of what you've done? She shook her head. I never meant to hurt you. But I couldn't keep living like this. I didn't know how to fix it, so I found something else. Something that made me feel alive again. The words stung, but I couldn't stop her from saying them. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't ashamed. She had made her choice. And I had just become the person she was leaving behind. I took a step back, feeling the weight of everything crashing down on me. How long has this been going on? I managed to ask. Since before the summer, she admitted, her voice cracking. It started with texts, and then it became more. I couldn't process it all. You've been seeing him for months, and you couldn't tell me? You couldn't even look me in the eye and say anything? She didn't respond. She just stood there, her eyes not meeting mine. I could see the guilt on her face, but it didn't change anything. The damage was done. The silence between us felt suffocating. For the first time in a long time, I didn't know who the person standing in front of me was. She wasn't the woman I had married. She wasn't the person I had trusted with my heart. And I couldn't understand how she had become someone else, someone who could betray me so easily. I don't know what to do now, I said quietly, feeling like everything I had ever known was slipping through my fingers. Tessa didn't answer. She just stood there, waiting for me to say something more, but I couldn't. I didn't have the words. All I could feel was the crushing weight of what she had done. I didn't know what to do next. The words she had spoken still echoed in my mind. I've been seeing him for a few months now. How could she say that? How could she betray me so completely? The room felt suffocating, as if the air itself had thickened with every second that passed. Tessa stood there, waiting for a response. But I couldn't speak. My mind was racing, trying to piece together the puzzle that had shattered in front of me. All the times I had tried to reach her, all the signs I had missed, it suddenly made sense. But that didn't make it any easier to understand. I turned away from her, needing some space, needing to breathe. My legs felt weak, and I stumbled toward the window. The night outside was still, the city lights flickering faintly in the distance. I couldn't look at her anymore. I couldn't face her. For a long moment, there was nothing but silence. Then, finally, she spoke, her voice softer now, almost apologetic. Felix, I didn't want it to be like this. I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't respond. What was there to say? She had already hurt me in ways I couldn't even begin to explain. I had trusted her. I had given her everything. And this was how she repaid me. You should have told me, I said, my voice quiet but firm. You should have been honest with me. I was scared, she replied. I didn't know how to tell you, and I kept thinking things would get better, but they didn't. I didn't know how to fix it. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She had been seeing another man for months, and she thought not telling me would fix anything? The hypocrisy, the complete disregard for me as her partner, it was too much. I don't know who you are anymore, I said, the words leaving my mouth before I could stop them. I didn't mean to say it, but it felt like the only truth left. You're not the person I married. Her eyes welled up, but she didn't cry. She just stood there, the sadness in her eyes almost too much to bear. I'm sorry, Felix. I really am. I wanted to scream. I wanted to yell at her, to make her feel the pain she had caused. But I didn't. Instead, I just stood there, feeling numb. The world seemed to spin around me, and I felt as if I were sinking, drowning in a sea of confusion and hurt. I don't know what to do now, I finally admitted, the weight of it all sinking in. I don't know how to move forward from this. Tessa didn't answer right away. She took a few steps toward me, her hand outstretched as if she wanted to comfort me. But I pulled away. I can't be with you anymore, I said, the finality of it hitting me like a wave. I can't keep pretending everything's fine. It's over. Tessa's face twisted with pain. Please, Felix, she begged, her voice cracking. I never wanted it to end like this. I didn't want to hurt you. But the words felt hollow. I couldn't listen to them anymore. Not after everything. Not after she had already made her choice. I turned and walked toward the door, leaving her standing there, broken. And as I stepped into the cold night, I felt the weight of everything that had happened crash down on me. There was no going back. No fixing this. Our marriage had ended in a way I could never have imagined. The days after I walked out of that apartment felt like I was floating in some surreal nightmare, where nothing made sense and everything was moving too fast. I had left Tessa, but the sting of that decision clung to me like a second skin. The apartment was too quiet now, and every little noise, the creak of the floorboards, the hum of the refrigerator, seemed amplified. I could still smell her perfume in the air, still hear the faint echo of her laughter in the back of my mind. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. I didn't have a plan, no idea of where to go next. It wasn't like I had friends I could lean on. Sure, I had coworkers, acquaintances, but no one who really knew me. I didn't want to explain this to anyone, not yet. I wasn't ready to let the world see how broken I was. I spent the first night at a friend's place, but the chaos in my mind didn't let me rest. I tossed and turned, staring at the ceiling. I kept replaying her words over and over in my head. I didn't know how to fix it. I needed something different. The more I thought about it, the more I felt like she was justifying her actions, and the anger that had been simmering inside me finally started to boil over. By the second day, I found myself back at the apartment, standing outside the door, unsure of why I had come back. Maybe it was to grab some of my things, maybe it was to confront her again, but I wasn't sure. The emotions were a mix of confusion, anger, and something else, a strange feeling of emptiness. I knocked on the door, my heart hammering in my chest. A few moments later, Tessa opened it. Her eyes were puffy, like she hadn't slept, but her posture was different. She wasn't crying anymore. Instead, there was something cold in her expression, as if she had already accepted what had happened. "I didn't expect you to come back," she said, her voice flat. I looked past her into the apartment. It was eerily empty. Half of the furniture was gone. Her things, her presence, felt like a ghost in the room. I didn't want to ask why she was moving things out, or if she had already made plans to leave, but I couldn't help myself. "Are you leaving?" I asked. Tessa hesitated before answering. "Yeah, I think it's best if I do." There was a finality to her words. The woman I had known, the woman I thought I'd spend my life with, was gone, and all that was left was this empty space between us. "I'm sorry, Felix," she said quietly. "I never meant for it to end like this." I didn't respond. I didn't have the words. It was too late for apologies. Too late for explanations. Instead, I turned and walked away. I knew this was the right thing to do. I couldn't stay in that toxic space. But even as I left, something inside me snapped. It was like I was leaving not just the apartment behind, but everything I had ever believed about love, about trust, about who I was. The next few weeks were a blur of silence and avoidance. I tried to move on, tried to keep my life moving forward, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face. Every time I went to sleep, I relived that moment when she told me about Alex. And the anger that had built up inside me wasn't enough to drown out the ache in my chest. I had been betrayed, not just by her, but by everything I thought we had built together. It wasn't until I ran into her at the grocery store one evening that I realized just how deep the wound went. She was with Alex, standing at the checkout counter, laughing. She looked happy. Something in me broke all over again. It had been weeks since I last saw Tessa. The first few days after I left, I thought I might finally be able to move on. But the truth is, no matter how much I tried, she lingered in the back of my mind, like a constant ache I couldn't shake. Every little thing seemed to remind me of her. Our old coffee shop, the route I used to drive home, even the song we used to play on road trips. It all felt suffocating. I was at the grocery store one evening, picking up some essentials for the week, when I saw them. Tessa and Alex, standing by the produce section. I froze. My heart dropped into my stomach, and everything around me seemed to blur. They were laughing, too casually, too comfortably, like they had always been this way. I watched as Alex reached for a bag of apples and handed it to Tessa, who smiled at him in a way that was so different from how she had ever smiled at me. I stood there for a moment, not sure if I should approach them or turn and leave. My instinct told me to leave, to avoid the confrontation, but something deep inside me told me I needed answers, answers I hadn't gotten before. I walked slowly toward them, my breath shallow, my heart racing. When Tessa saw me, her smile faltered for just a split second before she regained composure. But it was too late. I had already seen it. The guilt, the awkwardness in her eyes. She knew she'd been caught. "Felix," she said, her voice strained. "I didn't expect to see you here." I forced myself to stay calm, even though every fiber of my being wanted to shout at her, to demand an explanation. But I couldn't. Not here, not in front of him. "I didn't expect to see you here, either," I said flatly, my eyes flicking to Alex, who had awkwardly shifted his weight from one foot to the other. He didn't seem to know what to do, like he was just as uncomfortable with the situation as I was. "How have you been?" Tessa asked, her voice almost too sweet. I've been meaning to check in. Don't. I interrupted, cutting her off. I don't need you to check in. Not anymore. The words hung in the air, thick with the weight of everything that had happened. I could feel Alex's eyes on me, but I didn't care. This was between Tessa and me. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. She looked at Alex, then back at me, unsure of what to say. You should go, I said coldly. I don't want to be here with you. Tessa nodded, her face flushed. She didn't say anything else, just turned and walked away with Alex. I stood there for a long time, frozen in place, my mind a whirlwind of emotions. Watching them walk away together hit me harder than I could have imagined. It was one thing to know, but to see it with my own eyes, to see her so happy with him, was a different kind of pain. I didn't know what hurt more, the betrayal, or the realization that I wasn't even angry anymore. I just felt empty, like something inside me had been hollowed out. I didn't follow them, didn't say another word. Instead, I turned and walked down another aisle, trying to focus on something. Anything, other than the image of Tessa with him. The woman I had loved. The woman who had torn my life apart without a second thought. And as I continued my shopping, I realized one thing for sure. I wasn't just losing Tessa. I was losing myself. Days passed, and slowly, the initial sting of betrayal started to fade. It wasn't quick, and it wasn't easy, but I started to understand something important. I had the power to heal. It wasn't going to happen overnight, and it certainly wouldn't be a straight path. But the fact was, I had been given a chance to redefine my life, to rebuild it from the ground up. I kept busy, work, friends, small projects around the apartment. It wasn't about escaping the pain anymore. It was about accepting it, processing it, and then moving forward. I'd wake up in the morning, take a deep breath, and remind myself that I was stronger than the circumstances I'd been dealt. One Saturday, a few weeks later, I went to the park to clear my head. The weather was perfect, sunshine, light breeze, the kind of day you can't help but appreciate. I found a quiet bench by a pond, the water rippling gently, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt at peace. I was sitting there, just watching the world go by, when a woman sat down next to me. She smiled at me, but it wasn't one of those forced, awkward smiles. It was genuine, warm. Nice day, she said, her voice friendly. I smiled back, grateful for the distraction. It is. Perfect, actually. We started talking, just casual conversation at first. Her name was Emily, and she had a kind, easygoing vibe about her. She wasn't like the others. She wasn't trying to fill a void or seek validation. She was just herself. And in that moment, I realized something important. I wasn't alone. We talked for hours, sharing stories about our lives, our hopes, and our dreams. It wasn't anything heavy, but there was an ease between us that I hadn't felt in a long time. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the park, I felt something shift within me. I wasn't stuck in the past anymore. I had taken the first steps toward healing. A few weeks later, Emily and I went for coffee, then dinner, and before I knew it, I found myself genuinely looking forward to the future again. Not because I was forgetting about what happened with Tessa, but because I was learning to live beyond it. I was finding joy in small things again, in moments of laughter and shared experiences. I was beginning to trust myself and the possibility that I could still build a life full of happiness and love. The pain of the past still lingered sometimes, but it no longer controlled me. I was in control now, and that felt more powerful than anything I had ever known. I didn't need Tessa or anyone else to define my worth. I had learned the hardest lesson of all, that the most important relationship I could ever have was with myself. And with that, everything else, love, happiness, peace, would follow when the time was right. Life wasn't perfect, but it was mine. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough.